What's happening social media? So it's been a minute. So we're doing these bottoms up perspective every once a month versus we used to do it weekly, right? But it seems like, hey, we're all back at a little more of a norm where, we got busy full-time gigs and, days working. But hey, we want to dive in deeper and deliver more value. So today we go talk about a topic, especially now that we're back in the workplace instead of just being home. Some of us are in this hybrid model. Some of us are full blown in the office. And guess what? You got to deal with people. And when you deal with people, that goes from your bosses, your leadership, to your colleagues. So today we go talk a little about culture, right? And that's a buzzword because you hear Simon Sinek. Eldrick's a big fan, right?
You are Aldrich. Aldrich, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
And then you have the opposite spectrum, like Gary Vee and all these people that talk about happiness and culture. What is good leadership, right? So we could dive in a little bit, and we have a special guest tonight with Växa Collective, and I might have said that wrong. And I have Haley Grayless, and she's gonna pop in here. She works with leaders and coaching leaders to become fully their potential and who they are. So Haley, why don't you introduce yourself? Because you probably do it better than I can.
Okay, no worries. Thanks, Kevin. Hi, everybody. I'm Haley Grayless, and he almost got the company name right. Really, really cool. It's Växa Collective. Växa is Swedish for to grow. My dad's side is Swedish. So picked a word that made people ask questions and stumble over it sometimes. It's okay. It's Växa or Växa. If we have any Swedes watching, let us know the pronunciation. I think it's one of those words that can be different. But I picked that word because I, in my business, help people and companies grow to their fullest potential and to the best they can be, really, so that people are not miserable going to work and so that leaders are empowered to know how to motivate and inspire, empower their team so that they're effective and they're successful.
Awesome. So tell us a little about so what got you into doing this?
Yeah. So it's funny because I usually am the kind of person who's motivated to do something based on something that has upset me or something I've seen done wrong in the past. And that's exactly the reason here. I was working at a nonprofit here in like where I currently live in Kansas City, Missouri, and it had a really toxic culture, like a super high turnover. I mean, literally almost 50% year after year. It was insane. And I just kept thinking, like, this can be better, right? Like, you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to be scared to go to work. You don't have to like lose your appetite, have your hair fall out, not sleep at night, wake up in a sweat if you are sleeping because of how stressed you are at work and how terrible your leaders make you feel, right? Like, it does not have to be that way. And for anybody who says, well, they call it work for a reason, I'm sorry, you're wrong, and you got to change your mindset if you want to have a wholehearted and fulfilling life, you know? So I had just like a terribly stressful experience in a toxic culture with leaders who I wouldn't say are terrible people, but just they clearly either hadn't had management and leadership development, or if they had had it, it hadn't been good, or maybe they just didn't take it and learn from it. So I decided to start my business because I was like, well, I'll just take matters into my own hands. I guess if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And so I started my company at the end of 2018. So I made it through a pandemic. Really excited about that.
All right.
Yeah, barely by this time. And I'm really, really proud of it because I did not start my company in order to say, well, you know, if a hardship comes up, then I will just quit and figure something else out. Like, I'm the kind of person who, if I do something, I'm sticking with it and I will persevere. Success is my only option, and failure is not, as Eminem says. So I left that word. But so I mean, that's just how I feel about it. And so I started my company so that I could help people literally love where they spend most of their time. And it's at work for most of us.
Let's talk about this a little bit. So before we go into the questionnaire, I like to hear from Jeremy, Eldrick, Jennifer, some of our co-hosts. Share a toxic experience from your career.
Shall I go first?
Oh, please.
Hey,
Aldrich, just remember.
Haley mentioned on the toxic work culture that there's turnaround and people feel stressed after work. I think there's a very interesting corollary to that. I've seen ex-colleagues, just to be clear, they go back and sleep really well after delivering crappy work. And I don't think I think that's toxic too, because
don't have Eldrick in management.
I was gonna say, make sure Eldrick just limits it to one toxic story, because I think he has several. So
he would be the toxic leader.
You know, it's okay. I guess it's a lot better if you're working with people who are not that. Not always happy with what they do, so they keep pushing the boundaries. I think that's okay. But for those who can sleep really well after delivering a crappy job to the customers and you have to pick up the scraps, well, I'm not so sure if I'm really happy that they are happy. Mm-hmm. But anyway.
No, I agree. I think that high performance and excellence in your work is a value that most companies should have, and you should be proud of the work you put out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think let Jeremy go, and then Jennifer can run through her entire list. I'm interested to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, for me, it's not much of a career, right? It's more of during my national service days. I think I've spoken this before a long time ago, one of the podcasts. But anyway, it goes like this. Every morning I wake up at 7 something. I take a bike down to my office. It's a bit of a distance, and the clerk of my boss will come in and say, that my boss wants to see me. Yeah, and then I go in, and 7:30-ish, even before 8, I get a lashing, and this is daily. Yeah, I get a lashing on what I didn't do right, blah blah blah, and I start the day feeling really lousy. Somehow I managed to survive to the end of the day, sometime in the evening. And then I go back and I'll try to sleep, and then the whole cycle starts again. So for long story short, that's kind of like what I went through. But for Singaporean males, military service is mandatory, so you can't really choose. You can choose your boss as well. So I think I went through that for about a year plus. But looking back, what didn't kill me made me stronger. So I am almost bulletproof. I can't say I'm totally bulletproof, but
man, we got a lot of song titles tonight.
Bulletproof.
Yeah. Bulletproof.
So that's my little story. But I wanted to point out something. I think that an organization's culture is not so good when you have a huge turnover of HR staff. Let's say something. As an indication. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so go ahead. No, Haley, go
I was
ahead,
going to say, sometimes HR is also the problem because they are too close to the C-suite. And so then HR is like enabled to be jerks and to break rules by sharing personal private information. That's something I've seen happen before.
So Jeremy, that's when you need to go in the next day. Like, I know you're kind of past that experience, but if you have anything like that happen again, you just go in and you go, hit me, baby, one more time. Okay. No, I'm totally joking. Haley, I apologize. We've known each other a long time, so we do have a lot of internal jokes. So I apologize. But I do have to start by saying one thing, though, and that's what this whole bottoms up perspective is about. So I love that you're on here, Haley, to bring, kind of more of the Western side perspective. And then Aldrich and Jeremy are on here to bring more of am I getting it right? The Eastern side. Anyway, when we talk about East meets West, the way that they would do it, the way that businesses are ran and that function in Asian culture is completely different than how we function here. And so there's a whole new genre that I can't even imagine, except from the movies that I've watched many, many nights in a row.
Those are not true.
Those are not true.
Those are not true completely, but there's truth in it because I live with an Asian. Okay.
Those fairy tale romances don't happen at the office. With
so,
the CEO.
so yeah.
The CEOs
For
are
example,
dating the
I'll give you-
celebrities, not the secretary.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not true. It will never happen. Never.
And
Go
then
on,
they
Jennifer.
don't always have happy endings. So before I get to my story that I have, my story I would consider toxic would probably be the norm, in Singapore. So I'm more of the norm. So when Jeremy talks about going into that situation and getting a tongue lashing every day, we get people fired here for that. So, which I know is his military experience, but I also know that Asians in a higher position hold their employees to a lot. Like they have a lot of expectations. You have to meet it. Getting a tongue lashing is not necessarily abnormal in Asian culture. If you do something wrong, or if they think you do something wrong, you're in trouble for it and you're going to hear about it, whether you're innocent or not. Okay. So, for me, that's just to give you a little tidbit so that you understand where they're coming from as well. So, but for me, I worked for a company for a while and I absolutely loved what I did. It was, I guess I could go into a little more detail. So I worked for a company being a weight loss consultant. So your whole job is to sit there and listen to people and care about them and teach them the program, how to follow the program in their daily lives, what foods to eat, what foods to not eat, how to exercise, how to incorporate everything into your life. And then you send them on their way with tons of food. And that's how the company makes their money, is through the food that they buy each week. So there's like sales quotas that you have to make. I'm good at selling something unless I feel it's not really worth the money. And then I just want to help people. My main goal is to help people. Their main goal is to make money. So not a bad thing at all. Not a bad thing at all. And actually, I feel it's a really great company. I won't name any names because then if I get too specific, they will pinpoint me. Okay. So what happened is I had a boss at the time who, for some reason, was like a Jekyll and Hyde. So she would be really nice to you 1 minute. And then the next minute she would call you in her office and just let you have it. And some of it might've even been well-deserved, but it's just so weird how it was just constantly.
She wasn't Asian.
No. And it was such, and I'm all about receiving. I'm not always good at it, but I understand the importance of constructive criticism. And if I've made a mistake, I need to better myself. But it became toxic. And it wasn't just with me. It was the way that she dealt with everybody. She would talk behind others' backs, but then be really nice to them to their face. And the last straw was when she hadn't treated me well. And then she came in, she was regularly frustrated with me, even when I'm just like doing some cutting boxes and stocking stuff. And then she would come in and she cried on my shoulder because her boyfriend broke up with her and she just couldn't understand why she's not lovable. And I'm like, we're at work and you don't even like me. So I'm sitting here holding you and hugging you while you're crying on my shoulder, but you're not even nice to me. But because I love you and I'm a nice person, I'll give you a hug. But this is so weird. And
Jennifer, because everyone needs a shoulder to cry on. Since we're into songs this week.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry. I'm going to come up with another one before the end of the show. We like to keep it lively. So I could appreciate that, except that the environment overall was so toxic that then bringing that and putting it on someone that you have mistreated, and expecting them to shoulder that for you. See, so I didn't mind. A human to human, I care about her and I care that she is hurting in that moment, but it was just so not appropriate. And so I, again, if she had been my friend, it might not have felt inappropriate, but she was not my friend. She was not kind to me. And so so I took care of it really quick. And when corporate came in to investigate, she was guilty. Everybody spoke the truth behind closed doors, and she was out.
Guilty of?
She's guilty of everything that she was accused of.
Okay.
Because
that means her unkindness was not just to you; it's a consistent thing.
exactly, exactly.
Was it like an internal whistleblowing kind of thing?
Oh yeah, I blew the whistle really loud, Aldrich.
Oh, you would.
Oh yeah, I wrote a letter to corporate, and I just listed the things that were
done.
Completely.
Good for you.
Kevin helped me. I have to give him some credit.
I wrote the letter.
He knew how. I told him the problem.
I didn't work there.
Yeah. He helped me to write it because he knew how to word things appropriately so that corporate could understand the situation and take action. Because at that time, I can be pretty naive. I try to be very kind to people and be understanding, but I'm like, I would come home and tell Kevin what's going on up there. I'm like, this is awful. I have to say, legitimately, she could have been a good boss, but she was an awful boss because she was very emotional. And it was flip and flop, like happy and mad, happy and mad, happy and mad, all in the same moments, all in the same day. And so it's hard to do your job when you never know when you're going to get yelled at, when it could be in front of a client or other employees could hear. She had her door open, so it wasn't like she was criticizing me quietly. It was very exposed to everybody. It was very embarrassing for me. And so, Americans would look at that as kind of as toxic or as abusive. Asians may not, and I would love to hear your side. But I tell you what, she was found guilty of everything that she did because everybody spoke up behind closed doors and admitted to the struggles that they've had, and she was out, gone. Yep. And then they put a really lazy one in there afterwards. So but anyway,
at least you don't get yelled at.
Yeah, she was
too lazy to yell at you.
Chill. Yeah. She just gave, if you didn't do a good job, she just gave you less hours. That was a pickle too. But but I'm just saying, like, you do have to be a good employee. You can't expect somebody to be always be sweet to you or anything like that. But this was actually quite the opposite. So
nice story.
No, and for me, so I came from a list of toxic leaders, and just worked for a lot of crazies in my past, and you got to remember, to me, toxic leadership isn't always the person that's abusive the way they say stuff, right? It's also people who take credit for your work, right? When you put so much effort into it. So there's another leadership where they're very nice behind closed doors in front of you, but then during the boardroom meeting, they just took credit for what you did or your initiative. So there's all kinds of toxic leaders. And with that said, this is the first question for the night for Haley. So what is considered good culture within an organization?
Wow, I mean, this is a PhD essay.
That's true, Aldrich. Yeah,
because I have to admit, right, as much Jen said, the East and the West, because humans are humans, right? And I get the best of both worlds. I'm married to a Caucasian wife. I grew up in America since I was 6, but I live in a home environment that's very much Asian throughout most of my life, right? And I see both worlds, but at the end of the day,
my goodness, at the end of the day, people are people. And I think if you took culture out of it, we all want to feel respect. We all want to feel love. We all want to feel, hey, when we put in effort, that people see it. I don't care who you are, right? So let's go there for a little bit. What is considered good culture within an organization?
Yeah, I mean, like he said, this could be a whole PhD, project or something. But what I usually start with.
Ray Daddy help you for a bit. You wrote about it.
Oh, I'll have to look into that book. I haven't seen that one before. Uh, but I would say the most important thing to start with is psychological safety. So for people who don't know what that term is, it was coined by a researcher from Harvard University at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland in 1999, where she was doing research and discovered that certain surgical teams at this hospital were having better outcomes than other surgical teams. So fewer deaths, fewer infections and things like that. But those teams that had better results were making more mistakes. And she thought, well, how could that be? Like, how are they making more mistakes, but they have better outcomes? That doesn't line up. And then she hypothesized, wait, what if they're not making more mistakes? They're maybe just willing to talk about their mistakes with each other and with outside people. So she went back, did more research, and found that's exactly the case. So psychological safety is when a team is able to feel comfortable taking risks and appearing vulnerable in front of each other. They can ask hard questions. They can appear like they're asking the dumb question. They can challenge their boss. So like with a surgeon who maybe is doing something they shouldn't be doing, and they're just, not thinking, a nurse or a surgical tech or something might be able to say, oh, wait, you're operating on the wrong side, or you're losing too much blood here. We need to pull back and try something else, whatever. And they're able to do that, and it actually saves lives. So it was discovered in a very consequential type of environment where a lot of us do not work in life or death situations every day. But it was interesting they found it in that kind of thing. But they can, that's what the whole culture thing is where teams can feel comfortable taking risks, appearing vulnerable, being innovative without fear of their ideas being stolen. Like Kevin mentioned, that's happened to me as well. Without fear of humiliation, retaliation, retribution. So instead, somebody can speak up and say, oh, you know what? I think that I have a different opinion. I have a dissenting idea, or they can give feedback to somebody higher level than them. I always think it's important to say constructive feedback or positive feedback, whatever it might be, so that people have kind of get that word criticism out of their head, so that it doesn't feel as much like you're being attacked, but instead it's feedback. If we go into it with an open mind, if we're the receiver or the giver of the feedback, it's always seeking to be really curious. So I think that good cultures within organizations are also very curious. They assume positive intent with people. They don't assume that the reason that you turned something in late, or you didn't hit a deadline, or as Aldrich said, somebody maybe didn't perform with excellence. We assume positive intent. I bet that they wanted to, but they maybe just didn't have the mental health situation where they were able to. Maybe they're going through depression. Maybe something with their family or friends is happening. Maybe they really hate this project and we don't need to give them projects like this anymore, right? So instead we're going into it with curiosity and always asking questions. And a good culture is going to be something that is, I hate to say it any other way, but really top down. No matter how your lower level or entry level new people, anything like that, are behaving, they could be awesome leaders, maybe not managers, but people who are behaving in ways that they want others to behave. They're role modeling behaviors. They're being sacrificial. They're serving other people. Even if they're doing it, if your top level leadership is not doing it and modeling it for the rest of the team, the culture will not be good, because you're striking fear in the people on your team. And fear is not a sustainable motivator. So, it may be different in Asian culture, but we all still have the same brains, and we are built the same. We're not that different. Culture is different, but our bodies are made the same way. And you have an amygdala in your brain that's going to release cortisol, the stress hormone, when you're scared. It's what wants to keep us alive, right? It's going to release the stress hormone, and then that prevents us from being able to think really clearly with our frontal lobes, where we can think with critical reasoning and think through different challenges, and we can speak more clearly because our thoughts are in the right pattern. We've probably all been in the situations before where you're in a terrible conversation with your boss, maybe getting a lashing, like you mentioned, and you're so scared that your brain is just flooded with stress chemicals and stress hormones, that your frontal lobe isn't able to even truly think clearly, and you have no good comebacks. You can't defend yourself. You can't even approach it with curiosity because you're so scared. I've been in that situation many times. And now that I know that's what my brain is doing when I'm scared, it's that fight, flight, or freeze, I can control it a little bit better. But that's where we have to really understand how to have a good, strong conflict conversation. And we shouldn't turn away from those because they're inevitable, right? They're going to happen no matter what. We can't just sweep uncomfortable things under the rug. What happens when we do that? Oh, the rug, if we're using that metaphor, gets lumpy. Is it easy to vacuum a lumpy rug? Do you still have dirt and crap and junk under the rug if you are just sweeping it? It's not truly clean. The problem is still there, right? So we have to deal with things directly. That's another piece of good culture. So like what I teach my clients in the program that I run, the Revolutionary Leadership Lab, is that there are 5 main pillars to being a great leader who creates an amazing culture. And one of those, I think Aldrich would like this, is all about practicing performance accountability. So yes, we're building a strong culture of psychological safety, and we have self-awareness, emotional intelligence, we're setting clear expectations, but all of that culminates to the point of this is that we're here for a business purpose, right? And we want to get really clear outcomes. We want to provide amazing, excellent outcomes for our clients or donors or recipients, whatever they might be. And so we have to make sure people are held accountable. But all of that that's kind of the last piece. All of it before that is going to help us do that in an authentic way that helps us lead with joy and integrity.
Hey, wants to say hi to Selena. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hey, I know there's a lot of people are starting to hop on tonight, and I know a lot of people just want to attend and just be a viewer, but please just say hi, or give us a thumbs up so that we know you're here. Love to know who you are. Love to hear your experience too. If you want to share about a toxic experience you have, feel free to share. And I love what you said earlier, Haley. You said it's not sustainable.
Fear is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And it's so true. And I really believe it doesn't matter the culture, right? Because you go back, it's just like parenting, right? You don't want your kids to just fear you. You want them to actually do things right because they love you, right? And that is a dynamic, I think, in Asian culture. There's times where, the spanking was so intense. I know in America, you would be calling the cops, right? But in Asia is a little different, where I think there is that fear of there is not that openness to talking to your parents because I'm scared to tell my dad or the truth or whatever, right? Because I'm going to get spanked. So, and think about that for a minute. It's the same thing with companies. You lose so much good insight because good employees might not tell you something because they're scared.
Oh, the good employees will tell you during their exit interviews.
Sadly, yeah. And then by then,
those who give up with the organization, they won't. Yeah. You're right, Audrey. So there's two types.
Yeah, and a lot of good employees just don't say anything; they just leave.
Exactly, because they don't. Maybe there's not that psychological safety, and they're afraid they're going to get a lashing. And if we really look at this, is something I talk about a lot, is violent language. If we're considering something that you got a lashing, think about what that literally means. That's getting whipped. Literally bleeding. This is what I mean, open sores on your back. That's what it feels like to your heart, right? I mean, to get soft, but that's what it feels like. And you're saying lashing, and that must be what it really felt like emotionally. And that's not okay. I mean, I really don't think I know that it might be a cultural thing, but it's not going to be something that is good for your brains and good for the team overall. We want to make sure people don't feel like they're literally getting whipped. That's what a lashing is, Yep.
So with that said, how do you identify that you're in an abusive workplace environment? Because I think there's a lot of people that they just continue going to work every day. And even for myself, I was in an abusive work environment, and I, at the time you enjoy the salary and you just need it, and you tell
golden
yourself,
handcuffs.
You tell yourself this narrative, right? That, oh, it's okay. Or, hey, maybe it isn't abusive. That's just, they're just trying to push you to work harder. Right.
Oh, where do you draw the line? Yeah.
Yep.
Where do you draw the line?
Love to
That's
hear this. Yep. So when you're working with different companies, how can someone identify, hey, I'm in an
Mm-hmm.
abusive workplace environment?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is if you can ask yourself, if I give them feedback, constructive feedback, will they take that to heart and like say, well, thank you, and I want to change? Do they have like a good perspective on it? Do they have an open mind to hear that feedback and want to change something? Or are they just going to shut it down, act like you're a whiner or an entitled millennial? That's what happens a lot in the US. Like, they're just whiner millennials. And it's like, who gave us the participation trophies? You know, it was you boomers, which I honestly don't recall ever getting participation. But if you are able to say, no, they're not willing to hear my feedback, they're going to shut me down, they're going to berate me or give me a lashing, like you said. If that's the case, I think that's a really good indicator, a good litmus test for an abusive workplace culture or environment. It's not something that is always like obvious right away. It's more of like that frog in the boiling water. If you put them in water and it slowly gets hotter and hotter and hotter, that's what I was in. It was fine when I started at my job. I loved it. My friends teased me about how much I talked about on weekends or evenings. I'd be like, man, I wish I was at work right now. I loved my job. So for me to end up going to the extreme of like, I'm leaving and I'm starting my own business and I'm getting a master's degree in this stuff so I can make this never happen again. Like, that means it's pretty freaking terrible. Like, I tried for years and years and years to make change happen because, you know, Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world, you know? And I was like, I'll do it, Mahatma, you know, and I did not see any results. I was told to stop being the white knight, whatever that means, because
Wow.
because the white knight is a pure I don't know the metaphor. And so it's something that like, I just kept getting shut down anytime I tried to be the advocate for change and to model the behaviors I want to see, to show my own leadership skills. I kept getting shut down. And that it just was so clear. I think at maybe my second or third year in the organization is when things really got terrible and really bad. And I was there for 6.5 years. I stayed way too long. And I just kept trying to make change happen. And I think I should have seen earlier if they're not changing and it's still consistently bad, like there are consistently shocking things happening. I should have known the culture is really negative. The leader does not give a crap. He does not care. And I don't think he was a bad person. He really is a great person, but he did not care enough to, or I mean, I don't know if he just didn't know, but how could you not know? Like, look at the employee engagement results, you know, look at the turnover rate and look at the exit interview data, you know, like you are ignoring it if you don't know. So it was a terrible culture, regardless of if people had good intentions or not. They were not performing with excellence in their own roles internally.
And I want to bring up a point here too, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something I had to learn throughout my leadership journey as I manage people, right? Toxic culture can be caused by a good person. They don't mean it. There's a lot of leaders out there who struggle with confrontation.
Oh, 100%.
So me with my Asian background, right? So as I am maturing in my leadership and the more I've done it, you know, there was times I just put things off because of I didn't want to confront my staff or an employee. And, you know, I didn't just speak up. And I allow it to just continue. And it affects other people working with that person that I manage or colleague and stuff. And it caused a toxic atmosphere. But I didn't mean bad or evil. It was just a fear of, man, how am I going to say this to them or whatever? So I played the nice guy, right? I continued going lunch and just, you know, and that's also bad leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Because that sometimes causes more issues in the long run. And, you know, so toxic leaders not always the lashing boss or the one that steals your idea. Right. It could be just the nice guy too, or the nice girl, you know?
So, I've seen that many times too.
So
go ahead. I was going to say, Haley, you mentioned just now in any situation, right? A bad situation, you either fight, you take flight, or you freeze, right? But in Asian context, we seldom fight. We seldom fight.
Yeah, it's not as
take flight. We just don't do it because it's, I don't know, it's just that, you know,
well, there's more
Asian
hierarchy,
culture,
right? And submission. That's actually
respect for power, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Because Toyota in Japan, so not the same country, I know, but it's an Asian country. They had a similar culture. And so Toyota did this thing on their assembly lines for their cars because people weren't speaking up when something was wrong with something on the assembly line. Because they didn't want to go to their boss and say, I'm the one who noticed something went wrong, right? Like they did not have that like psychological safety, and it just wasn't cultural to say that. So they instead installed the andon cord. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, but it's kind of like on a bus, like when you need to get off the bus. You pull the cord and it tells the driver, here, stop. So when you pull the cord on the assembly line, it stops it and it alerts the supervisors to come over to that spot and see, what's going wrong with this engine or door or whatever it might be. And the person never had to say anything. So it was a very culturally responsive way to integrate psychological safety into their company. Do you think that's something that like resonates? Is that something that sounds like it would work?
Yeah.
Well, chance not to have to say something.
Actually, it still depends, right? I mean, for Toyota to implement that, they are willing to take criticisms or get to the bottom of it, right? But like you said, the culture comes from the top, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned in your situation, the top is the problem. Well, you in the middle or those below are perfectly fine, but if the top isn't moving or changing, people in the middle and below who are good is just going to leave due to frustration, right? And with your story, it actually motivated you to what you are today.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
No, and I want to
which
ask,
is so.
Go ahead.
Poetic.
I want to ask Aldrich and Jeremy while we're on this topic, right? And this is my experience, both working with Asians and just growing up in an Asian home. Why is it we're more docile?
Oh, just not. We don't do confrontations, right? I mean, it's really more of a respect for power. It's the face thing, right? If for example, if it's in a publicly work environment, the door is not closed and all that. If you go up against your boss, your boss loses face. You do not know there'll be retaliation or not. People around you might see it as stupid or just so many factors to consider. So you just rather keep your mouth shut and call it a day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
I have
go ahead.
Interpretation to that, which is in line with what Haley does for the last module on performance accountability. I think that, or rather, it's just my interpretation. Okay, whether we fight back, we confront, or we do feedback in an open environment. Okay, the one that Jennifer talked about, the open office thing. It's important for us to be responsible for the way we carry ourselves and the way we think about our team and the relationship. So if you put yourself in that position every day that, okay, I'm here to do the best job I can. At the same time, I'm responsible for my team. You calm down. Like, okay, there are things that I don't like, but I cannot afford to be a wimp because I'm representing my team. When my team complains to me about something, I can't just think about at the individual level, she's unhappy about this and that, or he's unhappy about this and that, or it is unhappy about this and that. Okay, take the gender disparity aside. It's important to think about how, as a group of people with a common objective aligning to the organization, how we can push ourselves ahead. And I think that's important. Now, when I say that's important, I don't mean you subsume your individuality. You can still do that, but there are certain circumstances you cannot do that. Meaning, when you are in a senior management meeting, as I do frequently, it is important for me to carry myself appropriately, representing the region and representing my teams. I can't go there and be a whimsical and say, I don't have enough budget. I mean, you guys are not giving me enough money. We can't do this. We can't do that. No, you don't do that. So that's how I see it. So it's not about being docile. It's not about. I mean, that's a bit. I just don't think it's the full picture. I just don't. So it's like in my parents' generation, my dad thinks about his family. He doesn't think about I'm the dad. I think about I'm the head of the household. So even though I don't like my job, I carry on with my job because I have to feed my son. I have my wife at home and things like that. So I think there's certain part of that that's still in our DNA and is reflective in the way we carry ourselves in any organization. I mean, it's just one way of seeing it. It's just one.
Don't rock the boat.
No, you can, but you have to be thoughtful. One thing
because you
that I
value
think-
security.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to rock the boat, but it's okay to disagree, but it has to be thoughtful. My keyword is you can disagree, but you got to make a case. So meaning, I happen to be in my day job. I happen to be in a position where a lot of things pass by my desk. A lot, papers, commercials, proposals, hiring, whatever, and my email accounts. So when my team member come to me and say, hey, I want to tell you something, and if I know that it's a complaint, a lament, or what, I say, hey, you know what? I'm perfectly open to listen to what you're going to tell me, but can we do this? Can you tell me what you are unhappy over? Can you then table a proposition on how we can improve and what's the budget for it? So convert your individual whimsical into something that the organization and the team can benefit. I will listen. I'll give you 60 minutes. Tell me what's that. Put it into your plan, make it thoughtful. Tell me what's the budget. I'll fight for it. And I think that's a better way to really address things, because the person that's coming to you, he or she can see that, oh, there's something practical that we can do about this, so let's do it. And the other side of that is, if I were to say something like that, I have to do something practical, and maybe I shouldn't complain that much because I just want to complain. So maybe I should just find someone else and go out for coffee and complain, and not like rock the boat in the team, right? In a not that productive way. So that's how I think about it. And it's one interpretation of how Asian thinks about it. That's me. It's just me.
No.
Yeah. I just one more point. I do think that we are too caught up with the idea of managers come with power, leaders come with natural way of bringing people together to do great things. I do think what's important is the harbors in the organization, HUBBER. Those people where they sit and everyone pass by, all work pass by, every decision comes to them. These group of people have to be very open and transparent in their conversations because they know everything. They can see what's going on. Upstream work, downstream work, and whatever. So if you are a harbor, it doesn't matter if you are a manager or a leader. You have a lot of bark and bite. So you have to sign up. So if you see people, your upstream or your downstream, like dying and whatsoever, never ever think that it's not your problem, because as a cog in the flywheel or the point of nexus in the wheel, if you don't take a look at what's going on, even if it's outside your job scope, eventually it will affect you. So you would rather solve the problem at its cost. And that's how I see the roles of CFOs. That's how I see the roles of CROs, so Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Financial Officer. They always do work outside of their job scope, and it is supposed to be. It is. Because even though you're not responsible for operations, don't forget, those people are helping you realize value. Even though you are the Chief Financial Officer, you still have to look at how your back office are performing, because then if they are not performing, your numbers are going to tank. So I think it's important to have an ecosystem way of thinking, especially when you are at the center I mean, there are many centers in the organization, but if you happen to be a center where everything passes by your desk, you need to level up. It's way better to abuse yourself than to abuse anyone else. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
Okay, so Aldrich, I'm gonna be ignore my son in the background. My littlest one has to be close to me, so he's got his tablet on, so I apologize. But anyway,
Don't have to.
if you could take all of what you just said, because I sometimes have a problem, like ADHD is what they call it. I have a problem focusing. How can you take everything you said and like interpret that into somebody that has a simple mind so that I can understand, like in two sentences,
I can do it for you. I can do it.
I
can do it.
Yeah,
I
in
can do
2
it.
sentences, sum it up.
One sentence. Don't give me the problem. Give me the solutions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Aldrich. You speak so eloquently, but today my mind is not able to focus. So I hear you, but I don't really hear you. So I was like, what? You speak so well, and yet I wasn't understanding. So I needed somebody to simplify.
But my summary really discounts a lot of it's just more of a joke, right? But it
I
discounts
know,
a lot
right?
of
No,
say.
he could have written a book. That was a great. That was like very eloquent, a beautiful book. I just didn't. You know, when you read, yeah, never mind. You get what I'm saying.
I was gonna point out, but what Aldrich mentioned is also sometimes the form, or what he mentioned is a good formula, right, for how CFOs should look outside of their scope. Everyone should, because you are ecosystem. But that is the opposite of that is also exactly how it becomes an abusive workplace. If everyone just look at their little space, right?
Silos,
the CFOs. Exactly. The CFOs just look at the numbers, doesn't care, just pushing for numbers, pushing down stress. That's a toxic environment as well, because nobody cares how you do, your mental health whatsoever. Just give me the numbers or I'll fire you. There's no psychological safety and all that good things. I don't want to hear your feedback. Just show me the numbers. There you have it, a formula for a toxic workplace.
Well, and that goes exactly
Understand.
to like that, those 5 pillars of successful leadership I mentioned. Pillar 2 is understand what motivates and inspires your employees and your team. So like not everybody's motivated by money or numbers, right? So we know that the reason that we're in a role most of the time is to help the company make more money. But I'm not motivated just to see a number tick up, right? Like I'm motivated to know like what it's doing to impact people. So like what, what's the company do, or what's the nonprofit do? Like, how is it helping people? How does my job connect to the overall like meaning and impact of the company or organization? And so I wish that more, I love that you brought that up, wish more CFOs realized that and knew that like, how can I connect that then? Just like people learn differently, auditory, visual, or kinesthetic, tactile. People also are motivated by different things. Some people are like, hell yeah, give me a raise and a bonus, and I want to see our revenue increase. But some people are like, I don't care. I'd work on Wall Street if I liked that kind of stuff. I'm motivated to see like, how is this impacting our customers, our clients, the recipients, whatever it might be, whatever industry you're in. Right.
Exactly.
And it's not that we don't care about the company making money. It's that that's not the ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to see like, yes, we're making money. We want to have a better year, but I want to make sure that like the impact is huge.
That's good, because it's also identifying everyone's motivators different, right?
Yeah, some people might not care about the impact. They're like, I'm just here to get paid, and that's fine as long as they recognize not everybody's that way.
That's the kind of people Aldrich mentioned in the beginning, right? They give crappy work, but they can sleep well.
because they don't work as hard as Aldrich. I'm being sincere, because Aldrich actually, I have to say this, even though sometimes you speak very high level and my brain does not understand. He is one of the hardest workers besides my husband that I've ever met.
Aww.
And Jeremy, I know you work hard too, but
no, I don't. Nobody works as hard as Aldrich. I work hard and I play hard.
Yes, Aldrich is one of the hardest workers besides my husband. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, thank you for kicking that all off. I appreciate that. Yeah, like everything just fell off on the floor. Thank you so much. I will organize that later. We're authentic on here. are very authentic. So, but yeah, I have to give Aldrich credit where credit is due. So I do know that he has a right to complain about a lot of people because he can probably outwork most of them and do his best job at it. So yeah, so
No,
there you go,
the
Aldrich.
thing is not about complaining on other people. I just to be completely clean about this. I think I've given it up for years now, because it doesn't work. Okay. I don't think complaint works. I don't think being whimsical works. Individual and organizational. Okay, I don't think they work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that any form of change management initiative that is top down works. Doesn't. Never. I've not seen it. Never. And I'm
They
talking
said-
about it from various pillars of involvement. Okay, I have a day job. I have multiple side hustles. I run a startup and I'm a co-founder for 2 other startups. I've never seen this work. Never, ever, ever. So
When
when
it's top
people
down.
tell me we need to do change management, I'll be like, let me take a look at the budget and let's see how it goes. You know,
Audrey.
so that's that. And what's really, to me, the individual is very important. Now, I said a lot about, you know, I don't really enjoy the individual whimsical and complaint and the feedback and whatsoever. But the flip side is true as well. There are people who do not, maybe, who needs the job. They think 9 to 5. They might not resonate with the company's mission or vision,
Mm-hmm.
but they engage with the work and the task way better than a lot of many other people who simply buy into the vision and mission.
Mm-hmm.
And it's evident when they speak. It's evident.
Aldrich, are you saying that it's whimsical to care about psychological safety and to like talk about feedback? Like, are you defining that with whimsy?
No, it's perfectly fine. Okay, so on this point, I think there are individuals who require psychological safety, and for it's a raft of reasons, right? And we seek psychological safety for different reasons too, right? But at the same time, there's also psychological safety as a group.
Yeah.
For people who are very performance oriented, if they are in a team where they can smell it that it's not going to happen, you watch what they do. They lose it. Like I don't want this assignment. You know, I just want to get out of here. It's wrong. You can feel it's in their words. You can
If they
feel
don't feel like it'll be successful, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and they will start doing things that are self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
They will start doing things that will sabotage their teams. So you don't want that to happen. You have to plug it out fast, right? So that's the individual and that's the group. And I think those are good things to observe. So you have to be very observant. As I mentioned, if you are in a hub and you can see things happening, you should do something about it before it gets too late.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people who see meaning and they engage with their work a lot. I respect these people a lot. Like they when you ask them something, they can explain to you layer to layer to layer to layer to layer, and they can explain it to you in a way that you can understand. It's very easy for me to say it. It's very difficult to do. Example, you have an issue, you want to explain to the C-level. You have to ensure that the CEO understands it, meaning you speak his language. Business.
Or her, yes.
Bottom line, investors, funding,
Returns.
credit rating for Moody's is dropping. CFO, COO, they all speak different things. If you can go in and explain to them your issues in language that they can understand, it takes a lot of dedication for that person to do it. And I respect these people. They are rare, but I love to work with them. They lighten your day. They do.
You'll love working with me then, Aldrich. I have no problem going into whoever and letting them know
no
what I
qualms about
need.
I have no crumbs about it. But at 7 p.m., I'll be like, Jennifer, where are you?
Exactly. At 7 p.m. I'll be at home with my family while you're still working. But while I'm there, I'll make sure that they know what's happening and what I need. Right, Kevin? He's my boss right now. So
I don't know.
It's a tricky situation
Hey,
now. But,
I do want to have you clarify something though that you said this time. I'm busy. Thank you. Okay. So when you were saying that change management, you've never seen it work from the top down, I would like to know kind of what you're thinking doesn't work, because I just want to know what you're thinking, why that doesn't work. Can you clarify that for me, why you
the
believe that?
initiatives can achieve the objectives, but it might not be long lasting at all, because human behavior. Now, I'm not dissing human behavior, but we have attributes that make us human. So first thing, we don't like discomfort. Second thing, we don't like changes we don't appreciate. Let me be clear, we don't like changes we don't appreciate. So if I do a lot of manual work, paperwork for the past 10 years, and out of the blue you tell me now everything that you do has to be on software on a laptop, I'm gonna kill you. Because I built my productivity, efficiency, my team, everything based on what I've done and learned in this way. Now you're telling me change everything. I'll kill you. Right? So what I mean is companies must change, but at the same time, you need to take a look at, you need to regulate the pace of your change based on the people that's working with you. Because not everyone can run that fast. Because if you're talking about a team, then you have to look at everybody. You can't just look at the fastest runners. Never works. That's what I think.
I think I'm asking you that because it depends on what size of company that you're working at, but with a smaller company, most of the changes that are made by the leadership. Am I right? I could be wrong on that, but I know in our company, if there's certain changes that need to be made now, our employees are free to share their thoughts and be part of the process, because we're all about what works and what doesn't work, and listening to our employees and giving them a place to speak, and just being very open-minded. But when it comes down to really implementing processes as a small company, we're the ones that implement that. Now, if it's bigger and you have like manager, different levels, starting from the CEOs down to managers, down to
The actual,
then it's totally different. But when you're in a small company, that looks different. So that's why I was asking you that, because you're saying, Aldrich, that you're over some, you're part of some startups, but then implementing change doesn't work. Well, who implements it then? Because if it's just you and the employees, literally, and you don't even have managers in between, then who's going to implement that? Because obviously, if you're the employee, you're not going to implement it. Because you just said, I don't like things to change. But sometimes you have to have change in order to have a foundation, a smooth system, in order to scale those startups. But you have to have something that's there, that's going to continue, to move with you as you're growing. So that's why I was just trying to make sure I understood and wanted to hear where you were coming from on that.
And I wanted to add, you may have done this before, Aldrich, but with change management, it's a lot of the different models that are pretty official. You've probably done them before, but they include getting buy-in from people throughout the organization. So, and I think that when they're done right, and it's hard to do a change management Oh no, everything froze
Yeah.
on my end. Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You're
All right,
good
everything
now. You're good now.
but I haven't really seen it done well. But I know the models, like there's so many great ones out there that involve getting buy-in from people and having different people throughout help implement and lead the change and have it not just be the C-suite. But I totally agree. It is, if it's not done right, it's just going to fall apart and people won't be on board.
I just have one final comment from me because I think the show is coming to an end pretty quickly, and it should. The thing is that a lot of people, when they think about change management, they do trade-offs, and that is something that we have to be very careful about. Example, and I've seen this many times. You can get my buy-in for this change management initiative, whatever that you want to do. You get my buy-in. One condition: don't involve me. Don't involve my team. We are overloaded. We are at our top. We are at our neck. We can't do it. I will endorse it. Leave me alone. No.
Leave me alone.
It's a red flag.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay.
oh.
I have to throw this out there, Aldrich, because I understand where you're coming from. Actually, I can picture that. I've watched a lot of Asian movies, by the way. Did I say that?
Yes.
So I can picture that. So when you're already overloaded, there's no room for anything else. You can't handle anything else. And it's very hard to change what you're doing when you're already overloaded and stressed and overwhelmed and whatever. But I think that what we're talking about are things that make your processes easier, that lighten your load. So you're thinking about adding more change and more load and more stress when you can't handle anymore. And that's normal. It's normal to feel that way. But changes should be to make systems smoother, or to, like I said, to lighten your load, to take stress off of you, not put stress on you. Now, that doesn't mean that changes aren't stressful. But most change is supposed to be a positive. That's what makes a company better internally, so that they can be better externally, whether you're selling products or services or whatever it is. If you get everything flowing internally, then your company can send that externally, through customer service and different ways. So the point is to get you unstressed, not stress you more. And I think that that's sometimes where Asian companies might miss the mark. I'm sorry.
He needs change. He needs change management.
Because change management is thinking about yes, exactly. Change management is thinking about the company
down.
But it also
get to eat.
Yes, I'm not worried about him right now. He'll be fine. But change management to me is not just changing the company. It is all about the people as well. And I think that sometimes is where it misses,
changing the mindset is the
So,
hardest.
Mindset.
I think this
I
leads
agree.
into the very last question, right? What are ways to create healthy work culture? And I want to hear from Haley. But
yes,
but
and then I have
as we're talking about this, I think one important element that we have to point out is it starts still. I mean, as much as we don't want to say it's from the top down. My dad used to tell me, right? If you're just unhappy with a job and you do a lot of complaining at home, you go back home. The company's not going to change. Your boss isn't going to change. So the only change you'll see is you quitting. Go do something else, So and it's one of the best things I learned. And there was times when I told myself, and Jen knows I'm a very loyal employee when I was an employee. And I am exactly that. Hey, I have to provide for my family. I have to provide for my wife. I have to take care of them, the way we live. But that is the worst thing to tell yourself. And I learned that over the years, because if you don't change that mindset, there's thousands of jobs out there. I'm sorry for the person that's watching this show and you're being abused and you're unhappy. There's jobs out there. It's just what you want to do, right? You can be happier doing McDonald's. And I'm just saying this because I did that. You know, I took a bankruptcy on a business back in the days, and I actually left corporate world and went and worked for my uncle and fried chicken in the campus that I graduated from. And it was one of the most, you know, there's things about that too, but at the same time, it was nice to get away from corporate and just see things that are more simple and get back into doing something that was more with your hands versus, you know, the corporate environment. But when it comes to change, right, it does start from the top down. I think leadership plays a huge part because I see it in the way I handle my stress level, the way I do things, the way I treat my employees. It does affect the company overall, the company, because at J29 I am the top, you know. So with that said, what are ways to create a healthy work culture?
Well, Jen, I wanted to hear what you had to say. You got really excited.
Oh, I am so excited about this, Haley. Wow. I can't thank you so much for letting me go first. And this actually, me being able to speak this out is actually part of what I believe, because I didn't answer the other question. This actually goes hand in hand with what is abusive and what is healthy. And me personally, I feel like if people don't have a voice, it's abusive. But if they're given a voice to just share their thoughts and their creativity and what's going on internally, it's healthy. At least for me. That's what matters the most, is that people listen, that they hear me, that they care. So that's my thing. And you gave me that platform. So I would work for you.
Yeah, having a voice, you're totally right. I think that is one of the most amazing ways to have a healthy workplace culture. And as Brene Brown, for people who know a lot about culture or leadership, they may have read Dare to Lead. She's like my queen, Brene Brown, but she has this quote, and I say it in almost every workshop I do: care and connection are irreducible requirements for wholehearted, productive relationships between leaders and team members. And those relationships are what build a culture. She is a researcher who's been doing it for 20 plus years. She's interviewed thousands of people. This is data, like research based, that statement, care and connection. So having a voice, like truly caring about your employees, and then really connecting with them on what motivates and inspires and empowers them individually. We've talked about that a lot throughout this, and not just motivating people with money or with, you know, like, oh, well, we're going to do a change management process and we want to hear your voice, right? Like Aldrich was saying, it also has to be like, he's not really motivated by just those things. He wants to know, like, how are we being productive with it? Are you taking up more of my time? Like, am I feeling respected? That kind of stuff. So really it's care, connection, voice, having a strong worth and healthy workplace culture is really putting your employees first. And I think Richard Branson of Virgin and many other companies says that best when he says, like, take care of your employees and they will take care of your customers.
Amen. Preach that.
We forget that sometimes. You know, the customer is always right is a thing that was really popular to be said in America, especially I think in like the 80s and 90s. And of course we want to take care of our clients, our customers, right? Like that's who's bringing in the money, but who's doing the work? Who's building relationships with clients and customers? It's your employees. And you don't have a company if you don't have employees. It's expensive to have turnover, and it's expensive to have turnover, especially it's even a higher percentage of their salary that it costs when you lose somebody if they're a revenue producing employee. So if they're sales, if they have a lot of institutional knowledge, if they are an executive, usually you have it's like 213% of their salary when you have turnover and a sales or high level position like that. It's a really big deal. And so poor culture costs money. It's bad for business. I know it's different culturally through different countries and even like sections of the United States too. Like things are different in the South as they would be in the Pacific Northwest and things like that. But we have to remember that if you don't have a good culture, it's going to just kill other things like your strategy and your quarterly reviews and anything like that, because culture is everything. That's really, like, I mean, I think that you were even mentioning that earlier, Aldrich, like as you were talking about something that was not as like we wouldn't think it's culture. Culture is everything. It is how your revenue is handled. It is how your finances are managed. It is how your CEO talks in the all staff meetings. It is how people interact in one-on-ones. Is it all about gossip? I've had one-on-one meetings before, bless their hearts, you know, these leaders, I've had managers who just use that time to gossip like about other people. And what are they doing then? They're modeling for me a behavior that's tolerated, gossip about other people within the organization, right? And I mean, it's every single thing. So I hate to put that on everybody. Like, if you want to be a great leader and create a great culture, you have to do everything right. But like, start doing little things right. Like, give people a voice. That means stop talking sometimes, right? When you're in a one-on-one, or you're doing a team meeting, or maybe you're doing an anonymous survey because that's culturally responsive in your situation. Make sure people feel really safe. Like, you're not tracking their IP address. Like, I know of companies that have done that before during employee engagement. And I think, what is even the point of wasting your time doing an employee engagement survey if you're going to track people's IP addresses and find out about it? What's wrong with you? You know, but find out ways to gather information, give people a voice, like Jen was saying. And I have to, like, I'm such a enthusiastic steamroller sometimes. I have to literally like relax my body and put my lips together. And it's a signal to myself and others. To myself, you're listening right now. You need to be engaged and listen, because sometimes I listen and what I'm wanting to do is just speak. You know, we all probably do that sometimes. But then the keeping my lips shut actually helps people that's a visual cue for them that their voice does matter. And I truly am listening. I'm not just going to sit here and interrupt them, right? And I've noticed more that the more I've done that and had like more of a calm demeanor while I listen, it helps somebody open up way more. I get more out of them. They share more information. If I relax my body, I don't sit all close and like have my mouth open, like I'm just going to spew out a bunch of thoughts, you know, and I'm just going to interrupt you. Like, I am getting way better results by giving people a voice. And
did you try that? Did you try that while we had coffee that day? Is that why I was talking so much? Maybe I just really opened. Maybe I really opened up to you. I'm not sure.
I loved it. I really did.
Just teasing. Yes, absolutely. It was great. We have to do it again sometime.
And I just want to say, Selena, she said, I feel like managers also need to be brave when they're having conversations and really listen to their team. And I agree.
So true. That really aligns. Like, I don't know if people have like identified their values, but that's something I did based on that book I just mentioned by Brene Brown. And I love how Selena just mentioned bravery, because that's similar to courage. Courage is one of my main values. And I want to do what is courageous and principled and full of integrity, not what's just comfortable and easy all the time. Right? Like, it is tough to do that, to sometimes do the most courageous thing and be brave. And that being brave is asking for dissenting opinions. That is taking feedback from others and then approaching it with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Right? That's what bravery and courage looks like. So that's a great statement to wrap everything up. Good job, Selena.
And I think one of the big things for me, you know, just throughout the years, just in leadership, and it's just learning to listen. I think, you know, everyone has an opinion and we love talking, right? But at the same time, we need to train our ears to really hear, right? To really listen, because a lot of times I think when you're in leadership position, you have all this idea in your head and you already have your opinion on what should be done instead of really listening. So you might tell your staff that, hey, I'm open about you sharing, but a lot of times you go to a place, well, in my head, I already have an opinion, but I'm just going to say that. But then that's not really listening as well. So Selena said, indeed, I've had to do that so many times over the last few years. So
yeah,
and it's important to observe what people are really telling us, whether they are our colleagues, co-workers, everyone that's around you. It's also important to pick up visual cues, like Haley needs to go for dinner. I saw that. So Kevin, can we just do a wrap up?
Yep.
I have to leave in 5 minutes
Yep.
too.
I'm good.
Aldrich is
So-
all about down to business.
No, and we appreciate
He's very
everyone joining
efficient.
us. But
Very
before we end tonight, we appreciate you. What's the best way to follow you, Haley? And tell us a little more about the service that you provide.
Oh yeah, thank you for asking. So the best place to follow and like get some information is in my free Facebook group, the Revolutionary Leadership Collective. So I'll put the link in the comments or something of YouTube and LinkedIn and stuff for that. But it's the Revolutionary Leadership Collective, and then kind of post that if people do trainings and stuff, they can always join the leadership coaching program, which is the Revolutionary Leadership Lab, which is a 12-month program with like intensive coaching from me and support and things like that. And then they can also follow me on Instagram. It's Haley, Haley, the leadership coach. So there's lots of information there as well. And they can always email me at Haley, Haley at VäxaCollective.com.
Yep. And being in the marketing business, right? I see this every day. There's so many businesses that have good service, good product, but bad leadership. And keep in mind,
Every day.
when it's bad leadership, it doesn't matter how good your product is, how good your service is. It's just a matter of time before that business start seeing a downward trend in your revenue. Because I've seen it over and over. So just keep that in mind. Culture is the heartbeat of your business, because at the end, we're all in the people business.
Yeah.
So, all right. Have a good night, everyone. Later.
Bye,
Bye. Thank you so
guys.
much, everybody.
Thanks, Haley.
Bye,
Thank you.
Haley.
So nice to meet everybody.